This is Kandahar, where the Taliban made their last stand as US-led forces invaded Afghanistan just over 5 years ago. We're in the deep south of the country, which in the coming weeks is expected to face the full force of what an emboldened Taliban insurgency promises will be a bloody spring offensive. Amidst the grinding poverty and resourcefulness of the Kandaharis are the symbols of their history and deep Islamic faith. The Grand Hakar Sharif Mosque, where an ornate locked box holds a cloak said to have been worn by the Prophet Muhammad. At another mosque around the corner, what is believed to be a part of his beard. And on roundabouts and outside garrison houses, cannons left behind by the British, who were routed by the Afghan tribes in the late 1800s. Afghanistan is a place the world forgot when Iraq went up in flames. But 5 years on, its government teeters, its armed forces cannot protect it, and a chaotic international coalition struggles, with fewer boots on the ground than were sent to tiny Kosovo in the 1990s. The Taliban had been written off as a spent force, but suddenly last year it burst back on the scene. Up to 5,000 Afghans died, suicide bombings increased fivefold, and about 200 foreign troops died. Suddenly, Washington and the world realised that here they've got a fight on their hands. The two sides facing off for the Spring War are broad alliances that struggle to overcome inbuilt shortcomings. On one side is the NATO alliance. Superficially it looks good. More than 33,000 troops from 37 countries, including Australia. But only the Americans, British, Canadians and the Dutch are fighting on the front line. That cuts the numbers to just over 18,000. The rest say they are here as NATO allies, but they're not here to fight. Behind them are the new Afghan army and police. Poorly paid, some of their foreign trainers think it'll be 10 years before they can defend the country. Poorly equipped, their desertion rates are high. Both are riddled with corruption. The government of Hamid Karzai is weak and bedevilled by corruption and vested interests too. On the other side, the Taliban leads the charge. Their one-legged military commander, Mullah Dadullah, is described as the Afghan Zarqawi because of his record of brutality. He runs a sophisticated media machine, promising to unleash 10,000 fighters and thousands of suicide bombers in the coming weeks. Dadullah has the advantage of running his command centre out of neighbouring Pakistan, where operations and training are coordinated with the Al-Qaeda terrorism network, which, despite having been run out of Afghanistan in 2001, is alive and well. The Taliban co-opts Afghan warlords and drug barons, whose only interest is in continued instability, as a device to maintain their power and their billion-dollar operations. Amid speculation of bloody months ahead, NATO's southern commander, the Dutch general Ton van Loon, insists there will be no spring offensive. He tells us, "The spring offensive will not happen because we're going to take the initiative. We'll go wherever we can to make sure the Taliban can't stop progress." Dadullah, the Taliban commander, is equally determined. In a recent satellite phone interview, he told Reuters, "This year will prove to be the bloodiest for the foreign troops. It's not just a threat, we'll prove it." To meet Taliban fighters, we are ordered to wear local dress and to don turbans. We are hurried on foot through narrow metre-wide alleys in the west of Kandahar. In a darkened room in a secluded mud-walled house, we met Haji Mullah, the leader of about 200 Taliban fighters at Panjwai, where they suffered huge losses in battle with the Canadians last year. 2 silent men are with him. He tells us, "We control the town, but we retreated to prevent more civilian casualties from the American bombing. They killed 4 of our commanders and many of our men." He goes on, "But we're still in the villages and the mountains, and we know what's happening in the town." Asked what will happen in the coming weeks, Haji Mullah refers us to the Taliban leadership, saying only, "God is the biggest power, and he's with us." Insecurity has driven most aid agencies from the south, stalling a hearts and minds reconstruction campaign worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And despite public opinion polls showing little public support for the Taliban, Afghans have a history of pragmatically biding their time, of sitting on the fence to see who still stands when the shooting stops. We speak to Mullah Naqibullah, the warlord who delivered the city of Kandahar to the Taliban in 1994 and who received it back 7 years later. Seeming to forget the carnage of 2006, he tells us, "Spring offensive, the Taliban says this every year and nothing happens. They have no power." Abdul Hakim Jan still fields a private militia of 1,000 men, and he claims that it was he who stopped the Taliban from advancing on Kandahar last year, not NATO, not American bombers. He touches on that Afghan pragmatism. The people are confused, he tells us. They don't like the Taliban, but they feel they must obey them when they take a district. He acknowledges the strength of the Taliban in neighbouring Helmand province. The problem as he sees it is that NATO and the US cannot win unless they enlist the aid of commanders like himself. We drive to Lashkargah, the provincial centre of Helmand. There, local government officials complain that despite the presence of 5,000 British troops, the Taliban effectively controls 90% of the province. They're appointing their own local government officials, collecting taxes, setting up schools and running a hospital, and they're imposing their own Sharia system of justice. There we meet another commander, Turialai, from the district of Gamsir. He acknowledges that he now pays the Taliban to be allowed to get on with his extensive opium trade, and he believes that the Taliban will prevail. They have Islamic motivation, and they have the support of Pakistan, he tells us. Turialai ticks off the same mistakes that many Afghans claim have cost the foreign forces the support of ordinary Afghans. Too many civilian casualties, not near enough cultural sensitivity. In Lashkargah, we come face to face with the power of the Taliban. As the leader of the local Islamic scholars, Malawi Ahmed is an influential local figure, but now he fears for his life, refusing to go outdoors and watched over by armed guards since he received a written death threat from the Taliban just 10 days ago. The locals call these notes night letters because they are dropped on people's doorsteps in the dark. Now, Malawi Ahmed is too frightened even to utter the word Taliban. Asked if the people support the government or the Taliban, he cryptically gives the edge to the insurgents, telling us, in any community, there are 3 categories: the people who are right, those who are wrong, and those who are always looking. In Helmand today, most people are still looking. This is Paul McGough, reporting from Kandahar.